ॐ पार्थाय प्रतिबोधितां भगवता नारायणेन स्वयं व्यासेन ग्रथितां पुराणमुनिना मध्ये महाभारतम् अद्वैतामृतवर्षिणीं भगवती अष्टादशाध्यायिनी अम्बा त्वामनुसन्ददामि भगवद्गीते भवद्वेषिणी नमोऽस्तु ते व्यासविशालबुद्धे कुल्लारविन्दायतपत्रनेत्र येन त्वया भारततैलपूर्णः प्रज्वालितो ज्ञानमयः प्रदीपः प्रपन्नपारिजाताय स्तोत्रवेत्रैकपाणये ज्ञानमुद्राय कृष्णाय गीतामृतदुहे नमः। सर्वोपनिषदो गावो दोग्धा गोपालनन्दनः पार्थो वत्स सुधीर्भोक्ता दुग्धं गीतामृतं महत्। वसुदेवसुतं देवं कंसचाणूरमर्दनं देवकी परमानन्दं कृष्णं वन्दे जगद्गुरुं। भीष्मद्रोणतटा जयद्रथजना गान्धारनीलोत्पला शल्याद्राहवती कृपेण वहनी कर्णेन वेलाकुला अश्वत्थामविकर्णघोरमकरा दुर्योधनावर्तिनी सोतीर्णा खलु पाण्डवैरणनदी कैवर्तक केशवः पाराशर्यवचः सरोजममलम् गीतार्थगन्धोत्कटम् नानाख्यानककेसरं हरिकथा सम्बोधना बोधितम् लोके सज्जन षट्पदैरहरः पेपीयमानं मुदा भूयाद् भारत पंकजं हरिमल प्रध्वांसिनः श्रेयसे मूकं करोति वाचालं पङ्गुं लङ्घयते गिरिं यत्कृपातमहं वन्दे परमानन्दमाधवम्। यं ब्रह्मा वरुणेन्द्ररुद्रमरुतः स्तुन्वन्ति दिव्यैस्वरैः वेदैः साङ्गपदं क्रमोपनिषदैः गायन्ति यं सामगा ध्यानावस्थिततद्गतेन मनसा पश्यन्ति यं योगिनो यस्यान्तं न विदुः सुरासुरगणाः देवाय तस्मै नमः।
Hari Om, greetings and salutations everyone. My name is Isha Dilraj, and it is my absolute pleasure and privilege to welcome you to tonight's Krishna Janmashtami discourse by Sri Angajanji. Over the past 7 days of Gita Week discourses, Sri Angajanji has so beautifully been imparting the pearls of wisdom by discussing the vision of the Bhagavad Gita in a practical, power-packed, and motivational manner, enlightening us on topics such as the purpose of life, maintaining a balanced mind, emotional mastery, the joy of giving, and the power of devotion and knowledge. The past week of discourses has been spiritually uplifting, culminating this blissful week with a final discourse on the purpose of Avatar. Please welcome the ever-inspiring and dynamic Guruji Sri Angajanji. Thank you.
Om Sahana Bhavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Greetings and salutations to one and all of you there. As you know, today is one of the most joyous festivals in the Hindu calendar because of the advent of the most dynamic avatar of Vishnu, Bhagavan Shri Krishna. Krishna's advent brought about an incredible degree of spiritual renaissance, not only in India, but the world over. And not only at the time of his advent, but Bhagavan Krishna's message through the philosophy of the Bhagavad Gita continue to make impact in millions upon, I would say, hundreds of millions of people for many millenniums together, and it will continue. On that account, we celebrate Krishna Janmashtami, the most dynamic avatar of Vishnu. Krishna, as you must have read some of his stories in Bhagavatam and other literatures, very enigmatic personality. Krishna is known in many affectionate names like Blue Boy of Vrindavan, Chit Chor, the stealer of Chit. So many. In fact, in the Bhagavad Gita itself, there are about 18 names for Krishna and 18 names for Arjuna. So various names only represents our deep-rooted affection and reverence to this great Lord. Isn't it a common proof that we all experience in our day-to-day life? When we love somebody dearly, we call them in different names. We won't call them in very formal names. Similarly, when we have that deeply embedded affection, devotion, and reverence to Bhagavan Krishna, he is addressed in many, many names. And each name has got a lot of meaning. Now, the theme of our topic, our discussion today is the purpose of avatar. Krishna is the only 8th avatar of Vishnu, and there was 7 before, and Vishnu had not only these avatars that we are referring to, generally the 9 avatars that's already appeared, they are only the primary avatar. There have been so many other avatars of Vishnu. When, if you look at the history of humanity, for time immemorial, the world has been challenged by demonic forces, evil propensity. There was not one era where the world is not challenged, and it will continue to be challenged by the demonic forces, evil forces. Whenever there is a challenge from the evil forces in the world, there comes an avatar. Now, what does avatar mean? Avatar is one who's attuned to God consciousness by birth itself. An avatar is born enlightened, God realized. They need not go through spiritual discipline or sadhana to reach God realization. And Lord Krishna is considered as Purna Avatar, avatar in total, complete avatar. Rama, and of course, his complete avatar, starting from Matsya avatar, that is fish avatar, to Krishna avatar, there is a gradual progression. So these 9 avatars that is already appeared, considered to be the most popular one. So since the world is a mixture of good and bad, whenever there is a tilt of balance from good to bad, noble to ignoble, from virtue to vice. So whenever the balance tilt more towards the vicious side, in order to resurrect people, in order to rejuvenate humanity, rejuvenate the world towards the noble direction, there appear an avatar, a God realized soul at the time of birth itself. As many of you must have read in the Bhagavad Gita, the 4th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, verses 7 and 8, Bhagavan Krishna himself expresses this phenomena of the universe as to how and why and what for there appears an avatar. So let us now refer to the two verses in the 4th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, verses 7 and 8, discussing the purpose. Verse 7 and 8.
Yada yada hi dharmasya glanirvavati bharata abhyudhanamadharmasya tadatmanam srijamyaham paritranaya sadhunam vinashaya cha dushkritam dharma samsthapanarthaya sambhavami yuge yuge.
The translation of the verses reads, verse 7 of chapter 4, he says, O Bharata, referring to Arjuna, O Bharata, whenever there is indeed a decline of dharma, righteousness, and a rise of adharma, unrighteousness, then I manifest myself, says Krishna. Oh Bharata, Bharata is a word which has got deep significance. There are two meanings to this. One is, Bharata is derived from the two words Bhasi Rataha. Bhasi means light, the light of knowledge, light of God consciousness. Rata means reveling. So Bharata is one who is born to revel in the light of God consciousness. That is Bharata. The second meaning is, the word Bharata is divided into three Sanskrit words: Bhava, Raga, and Tala. Bhava means expression, Raga means tune, and Tala means rhythm. So Bharata is one who sees the expression of God, who maintains the tune, who lives in tune with nature, in environment, and who follows the rhythm of the universe. That is Bharata. So, O Bharata, whenever there is indeed a decline of dharma and rise of adharma, then I manifest myself. And the second verse reads, for what is the purpose of this manifestation? Verse 8. He says, for the protection of the virtuous, for the destruction of the wicked, and for the establishment of dharma, I am born from age to age. So the first verse is talking about advent of avatar, and the second verse is talking about the purpose. What is the purpose? Threefold purpose. Number one, for the protection of the virtuous, destruction of the wicked, and for the establishment of dharma. And if you look at the advent of avatars, whether it is Matsya avatar, that is the fish avatar, to tortoise avatar, right up to Krishna avatar and Buddha, there has been the establishment of dharma and destruction of evil. Now, looking at this from contemporary perspective, What is happening in the world today? This advent of avatar is not only what happened ages ago, millenniums ago, it happens now as well. So what happens is in the world, when people lose the spiritual values and they live a life of extreme materialism, an unacceptable level of selfishness and egocentricity, and such life leading to so much of strife, conflict, unhappiness, pain, and suffering in humanity. Self-realized soul, God-realized soul appear. And if you look at the history of India particularly, almost every quarter of a century, there has been an advent of a great God-realized soul who lifted humanity to great heights, and they disappear. And again it declines, and then comes another amazing master, lifts people of a particular society. So this has been the history of India. So this is what Bhagavan Krishna is saying, that whenever there is a decline of dharma and rise of adharma, I appear again and again. I referring to God speaks as it were. When you read the Bhagavad Gita, when Bhagavan Krishna uses the first person singular pronoun I or me, God speaks as it were. Advent of God happens. For what? To lift humanity to great heights. So this phenomena is not only happens in the outside world, it also happens within each one of us. It is true that when, as an individual, you as a person, as a human being, as an individual, when you deviate from the path of dharma, path of righteousness, path of nobility, and if you get lured away from the extreme sense of indulgent, when you're overpowered by egocentricity and selfishness, you will find warning signs in your life. You will experience warnings. And if you ignore the warnings, you will encounter problems, small problems, minor challenges. If you still ignore these values and principles, you will have bigger challenges. And if you still violate, destruction. This idea is beautifully symbolized in the iconography of Vishnu. As you know, all the avatar that we celebrate is avatar of Vishnu. So one of the most popular iconography of Vishnu is Chadurbhuja Vishnu, Vishnu standing on the lotus with 4 hands. They are not meant to be taken literally, but the spiritual values to be understood. So Vishnu standing on 4 hands, on a lotus with 4 hands. On one of the hands, Vishnu holds a lotus. On the second hand, he holds a conch. On the third hand, he holds a gada, that is mace. And on the fourth hand, he holds his famous weapon, disc sword called chakra. Wearing the crown, symbolizing the lordship, mastery over the world. So this is the iconography of Lord Vishnu. So when we worship Vishnu Bhagavan, you got to reflect these principles in our life. Lotus symbolizes truth, dharma, righteousness. Lotus is a symbol of dharma. Lotus, by the way, is the national flower of India. Lotus is a flower that is born in water, lives in water, dies in water, but always above water. Similarly, we got to live a life of detachment, rise above the materialistic way of living, enjoy the world, no problem, but don't allow the world to control us. So live a life of dharma. So if you violate that principle, the conscience within wants us. Conscience is that unseen hand that is holding us when we are tending toward something adharmic, something unrighteous. An inner voice holding us back, that is called a conscience. So the conch is a very significant instrument in Hinduism. Every prayer, every havan, the priest, the guru blows the conch. So when you blow the conch, the reverberating sound that emanating out of the conch is the sound of Om, representing the conscience within. If you still ignore the dictation, if you don't pay heed to the conscience within, what happens? You will be visited with the troubles and tribulations and challenges. You'll find problems occurring in your life. And when there is visitations of problem, what do? We still blame the world. We blame the people outside. We blame the environment. We blame the circumstances. We blame everything else except yourself. If you still ignore, then comes chakra of Vishnu. The chakra is the disc sword of Vishnu, represents the law of karma. You are punished by your action and not for your action. A lot of people believe that God is sitting there in heaven and punishing you and me for our sin. God has got better things to do than punishing you and me. You are punished by your own action, not by your act. You're punished by your action, not for your action. So the chakra symbolizes the cause-effect phenomena. So this advent of avatar is not only in the external world, it happens within each one of us. So this phenomena of avatar is symbolically represented as Vishnu standing with four hands, reminding us. Externally, we call it avatar. And this avatar need not be in the divine form like Rama or Krishna. This avatar can be in the form of a tiny, invisible, even with ordinary microscope, like a virus. So this avatar can be in the form of virus. Doesn't necessarily have to be a giant expression. In fact, I happened to read the other day the impact of this virus. I'm sure all of you have read this from so many sources. Dr. Subramanian Narayanan, a great researcher, scientist, analyzed this that caught my attention. He said that the weight of one virus, the coronavirus, is about 0.85 attogram. The weight of one coronavirus is 0.85 attogram. Attogram is about 10 to the power of minus 85 gram. So I don't know how they measure. That itself is, for me, unfathomable. And then he says it takes about 70 billion viruses, coronaviruses. It takes about 70 billion viruses to make a person fall sick. Until then, our body's resistance fights. In fact, our body has all the ability to fight all the diseases. Our physical body is the most powerful laboratory on the face of earth. But because of our unhealthy lifestyle, we have destroyed that ability. The physical body has the fighting system. So he said that it takes about 70 billion viruses to make a person fall sick. And that 70 billion viruses is about 0.0000005 gram. That's 70 billion viruses. And then he says, today, there are about 7 million people infected, active cases. Maybe 20 million people infected, about 7 million active cases of coronavirus now. And if you put all the coronaviruses in the infected people put together, comes to less than 3 grams of viruses. That 3 grams of viruses have brought the world to its knees. And advent of this coronavirus doesn't teach us a lesson and begin to bring about a change of lifestyle. I don't know what will bring about change in lifestyle. Less than 3 grams of all the people infected, nearly 7 million people, all those viruses put together comes to less than 3 grams. And that is what brought the world on its knees. Brought the world to a grinding halt, isn't it? And incidentally, apart from our ego and selfishness getting affected, there is only positive impact in the world, isn't it? In nature, there is only positive impact. The problem is only for humanity, not for nature, not for plants, not for animals. Animals are reveling. They are so happy there that corona came. They are sitting in the Amazon jungles and other forests are dancing with joy. That is what they're doing. Why? Because humanity did not realize to the extent of ego and selfishness we have come to. There is pollution level has reduced so significantly. People need not travel. All the meetings are electronic meeting, online meeting, as you see. If it was not so, we would have been meeting personally in one of the venues, auditoriums. There is less traffic on the road comparatively. In some of the countries, minimum traffic. Some of the cities in India, vehicles on the road is something like what happened 40 years ago, minimum cars. Malls have got minimum people and they're able to spend time with the family. Otherwise, we believe we need to go to a mall and sit in a coffee shop to connect with the people, connect with the family. We believe that we need to go to a classy restaurant to have a quality time with the family, but people learn to cook at home and learn to enjoy food. Isn't that a positive benefit? That is the effect of Avatar. We put our children through unimaginable exam pressure. Many kids are promoted without even writing the exams. I'm not saying exams are bad. I'm talking about we put the children under a lot of pressure. I wish some of the the leaders in the education is listening to this. Ladies and gentlemen, children with a great purpose is a greater achiever than another child who knows a lots of facts and figures. A person with a goal and a purpose can make a greater impact than another person who can regurgitate the facts and figures that they learn and the paper. Children are under less pressure with the exam. Our weddings have become so simple. Indian diaspora all over the world are so guilty of extravagant weddings. Olden times they used to say big fat Greek wedding. Now it is about big fat Indian wedding. On one side, there could be poor people suffering out of starvation and penury. And very next door, there can be extravagant wedding and substantial quantity of food gets wasted after the wedding. Because how much can you eat? 3 or 4 course meal. Weddings have become so simple. Our funerals have become so simple. Many people who don't really mean a sense of sympathy will go for the funeral just to show their face. If you're going for a funeral, go with a sincerity. Otherwise, yes, people do expect your condolences, but if you're going, go with the right spirit. So funerals have become so simple. Birthday parties have written off totally. Birthday parties are celebrated in the house itself. And then people don't fall sick. The corporate hospitals are empty. I'm not talking about doctors. Fantastic. Some of the doctors are very, very divine soul. I've got some good friends, doctors, so divine soul, they do not recommend a treatment. They do not recommend medicine unless it is absolute necessary. But look at what is happening in the corporate hospitals. Corporate hospitals are designed to generate wealth rather than treating people. As a result, if a person walks in with a simple headache or stomachache, the hospital, I'm not talking about doctors, the hospital will find about 25 problems. If a person walks in with a simple heart pain, the hospital will not let the person go. The hospital will say, I can't let you go because you have got 3-4 blocks. It may be true, but how did the person walk in? Will the person not walk back? Corporate hospital becomes a medical industry. Coronavirus is a message to those. Doctors are fantastic. Many, many doctors have got divine characteristics. Now, this is the paradigm shift that coronavirus happens. Ladies and gentlemen, me as a philosopher, this advent of corona is an avatar. Is to bring about, transform people, to change their lifestyle from artificial lifestyle to natural lifestyle. Today, everything is artificial. Artificial taste, artificial flavor, artificial color. I'm talking about food. Artificial flower. Love is artificial. Our love is not genuine. That is why the divorce rate is increasing alarmingly. If you trace back about 100 years before, divorce rate in the world were minimum because there were natural love. Today we have artificial love. When there is artificial love, people need to express it. They need to say, I love you. Whereas natural love need not be said because your body language, your everything, your demeanor convey the love. And to express love, they have to buy expensive gift. And the more expensive the gift, the more love. No such thing. Our love has become artificial. Our feelings have become artificial. Our lifestyle generally has become so artificial. Advent of Corona is an avatar. That is a wake-up call for humanity to go back to a natural way of living in every sense of the term. So when there is such rank selfishness and ego, the nature's intelligence wakes up. Nature's intelligence, we have meddled with the intelligence of nature, like I mentioned to the other day. The nature's intelligence wakes up and gives us shock therapy. So this Corona, advent of Corona, is a shock therapy. And if you go back in the history, almost every 100 years or so, there was a pandemic. There was disasters, there was wars. So the shock therapy comes in the form of famine, earthquake, hurricane, flood, or it could be pandemic, whichever way it is. This is how avatar comes. So when such disaster happens, instead of blaming nature, take responsibility and change our lifestyle. So whenever there is a deterioration of dharma, Bhagavan Krishna said, Sambhavami yuge yuge, I will appear again and again. In what form? In the form of coronavirus. For what? The next verse, he says, for the protection of the virtuous. People who ethically do business and they don't have the desire to unethically multiply their profit at the expense of the other people, they will always be protected. That is the law. For the protection of the virtues, for the destruction of the vicious, and for the establishment of dharma. That is the purpose. Now you may wonder, where are we going wrong? What wrong are we doing in this world? What is going wrong with our lifestyle? And it's not a rocket science to observe life and understand what we are going wrong. There are so many areas, but I would think primarily, and there may be many subsidiaries, but primarily I would look at 4 areas. Because of selfishness and ego of humanity, we led a life of destruction. So what is going wrong is that, number one, humanity believe that we have more right over earth than animals and plants. This is one of the biggest blunder human beings are going through. We believe we have more right to live on this earth than animals and plants. So what do? So with that understanding, when we want to live, we destroy the basic lives and livelihood of animals for our survival. In such situation, nature's intelligence will never ever stay quiet. Remember, the earth does not belong to human being. It's the other way. Human beings belong to earth. We have a misconception. The earth belongs to human beings. We belong to earth. So this advent of coronavirus is to change that belief system that we have more right to live on this earth than animals and plants. No, it is not. We don't belong to the earth. Earth don't belong to us. We belong to earth. and live with a spirit of gratitude, live with a spirit of consciousness, so that our lifestyle will make zero or minimum impact. At the moment, our lifestyle is making extreme negative impact in the world. And if every human being don't consciously take effort and make sure that our lifestyle is making minimum impact, minimum pollution, in every sense, there are too many negative impacts for me to mention. Simple things like the plastic pollutions in the oceans and river, the environment pollution, the carbon emission, all that is being spoken in the reputed pulpits thousands and thousands of times, but we don't act on it. When we pollute river, ladies and gentlemen, we need to understand what is river. River is the blood vessels of Mother Earth. River is the blood vessels of Mother Earth. And look what we are doing. Industries all over the world are polluting the blood vessels of Mother Earth. And do we expect Mother to keep quiet? And do we expect that there will not be an avatar in the form of Corona? Impossible. We have polluted the ocean. Remember, although millions of creatures in the ocean are still not discovered, if you look at the Mariana Trench, which is the deepest portion of the ocean, submarine creatures are living there at an incredibly high water pressure. It is Him who's looking after those animals there. You try going about 10 meters below the water and you feel the pressure, the water pressure. You can't unless you're a trained diver. And the animals, those submarine creatures are looked after. Who does it? Paramatma. And we ruthlessly pollute those environments. Those animals are necessary for our existence. We spoke about Vasudhaiva Kudumbakam, the world is one family. What that means is our life, whether it is the creatures in the ocean that we don't know, or animals in the South American rainforest that we have not heard of, all of them are so interconnected. And when we don't understand this, there will be incidences like this. Every year, nearly 18 million acres of rainforest is destroyed every year. And what happened to the animals who are living there? And through genetic modification, using our so-called intelligence, which is actually stupidity, so says Einstein, we have learned to reproduce or multiply animals. It's making a negative impact. So number one that we need to change our thinking is that we do not have more right to live in this earth than animals and plants. Earth don't belong to us. We belong to earth. Remember that. The second thing that we need to understand, ladies and gentlemen, is that humanity as a whole, every country in the world is in a race of incredible speed for technological advancement. We have created technology much, much more than necessary for human beings to be happy. We are becoming more and more dependent upon artificial technology As a result, we are forgetting to use our inborn natural tendencies, natural intelligence. Technology is fantastic, provided we know how to use it. I mean, without technology, our life, I can't imagine our life. The fact that you could be sitting far away from where I am, I don't know which part of the world or where you're sitting, but the fact that you're sitting far away from where I am, it is the technology that facilitates it to communicate, isn't it? Yes, technology is fantastic, but we are becoming dependent upon technology much more than necessary for us to be happy. I quoted yesterday, I will quote again Einstein, who said, I fear the day that technology overpowers human interaction, that the world will have a generation of idiots. Martin Luther King expressed it differently but beautifully when he said, I quote, our scientific power has outrun our spiritual power. We have guided missiles and misguided men. Our scientific power has outrun our spiritual power. We have guided missiles and misguided men. He's talking about scientific advancement beyond what is necessary. When humanity do not balance the scientific development with spiritual development, there will be this kind of challenges. In fact, science and spirituality must coincide in every human life. Science and spirituality, science and religion must go parallelly. I can't find a meeting point. We cannot exclude science 100%. We cannot exclude spirituality 100%. But if you look at what's happening in our educational system, we have totally alienated spirituality in the world. And India is the mother of spirituality for the world. The world has a spiritual debt to India. Because ancient times, education began by teaching young children the fundamental spiritual values. As a result, they lived such a so natural life. When there was a time span, which was short, of course, maybe about 50, 60 years, now the life expectancy has increased to 80 years thanks to technology, medical technology. But the negative impact by that long span compared to that short span of 50 years, they only made positive impact in the world. The third thing that we are doing wrong, I want to bring your attention, is that we measure our growth based on our economic growth. Every country measures its progress based on its economic growth. While economic growth may be important, I don't refute that fact, because people need resources. But then we cannot afford to measure our growth based on that. There is only one country in the world that measures its progress based on one crucial factor. That small country in northeast region, the area of India called Bhutan, measure the country's progress based on happiness index. They measure the country's growth based on happiness index. In fact, that is the only country in the world minus carbon emission. Every other country is polluting the environment. Mahatma Gandhi said, world has enough to feed people's need but not to feed people's greed. Oliver Goldsmith, an English poet, said, "Where wealth accumulates, men decay." Where wealth accumulates, men decay. Today, accumulation of wealth, I'm talking about nationally, as a country. While economic growth is important, poor people need food to eat, no doubt. But that is the only factor that will determine if the country is progressing or not. There are so many countries in the world economically much, much better, but what about the happiness index? If you don't believe, look at the countries, many countries in Europe, what's happening in America. Sweden leads the highest divorce rates in the world, nearly 56%. Second is America, and India has got minimum divorce rate. Two people cannot live together. We're talking about countries that are economically so advanced, technologically advanced, but happiness index has reduced. The world's top 10% of the people hold 85% of the wealth. 10% of the people hold 85% of the wealth. Doesn't what Gandhi said reflects that the world has got enough resources to people's need, not for people's greed. And 1% of the people in the world hold 44% of the wealth in the world, according to Credit Suisse. 1% of the people in the world own 44% of the wealth. This is the statistics. When there is no reasonable distribution of wealth, when we are not concerned, we spoke about social consciousness the other day. Social consciousness means being concerned about the interest of everybody else. Ladies and gentlemen, that is the only way for us to find happiness. Happiness comes by giving it to the other people. This is called the law of reciprocity. According to the law of reciprocity, the more you impart happiness in any way, it could be charity, whichever way that you can, the more you think about the happiness of the other people, your happiness multiply. I told you the other day, happiness multiply when you divides it and shares it. So world believes that growth is based on economic growth. And the fourth one I want to emphasize is the explosion of population. The population is exploding beyond we can control. And science and other factors have contributed it. In about 1700, all right, that is only about 300-400 years ago. All right, in 1700, the world had 610 million people. And by 1800, the population has increased from 610 million to 1 billion in a matter of 100 years. And then by 1900, the population grew from 1 billion to 1.6 billion. And by the year 2000, that is exactly about 100 years later, the population has exploded from 1.6 billion to 6 billion. And by 2020, in 2 decades, the world has added 1.8 billion more people. By 20 years, from 6 billion, the population has gone to 7.8 billion, according to statistics. This is not my concoction. You can research it. And they project by 2040, that is 20 years from now, the world will have about 9.1 billion people in this world. You might wonder, why am I projecting the statistics? When the population multiplies, imagine the impact of people on nature. The nature will have excessive burden. The nature has to provide to food. So when humanity don't take care of this population explosion, there will be advent of pandemic, disaster that will wipe out millions. Almost every 100 years or so, from 1720, 1820, 1920, and now 2020. And in between so many, there were so many pandemics, so many disasters, so many World War I, II. And in those wars, millions got wiped out, isn't it? Why? That is avatar. Remember, when a million people dies, it is not the million people that died. 20 years later, if that million were to multiply, it could be about 200 million. That is the design of nature. It is not a curse. I'm not trying to infuse fear in us. It is a reality. We need to wake up to the reality and understand that we need to go back to live natural life. Let us not live a life based on pain of other animals. Today, every day, billions of animals are put through excruciating pain and torture in the cattle farms, in the poultry farms, in the every other farms, just to please the 2-inch long tongue. Just to please our 2-inch long tongue. Did you ever think how many million animals go through pain? And there are so many so-called animal activists who practice selective love for animals. If a dog is put through pain, oh, they make big noise. They don't realize millions or hundreds of or billions of animals are going through, unimaginable pain. If our life is based on pain of other animals, we will be visited by such kind of eventualities. That is the law. Therefore, what is the message? What is the purpose of avatar? Don't understand avatar only as a blue boy of Vrindavan like Krishna or Rama or Balaram or Vamana avatar, etc. Avatar comes in many forms. Now, these avatar that you heard of are only 9 in number, and Vishnu had so many other avatars in different forms, in the forms of animals. So when such occurrences happen, ladies and gentlemen, we need to go back to a conscious lifestyle, socially conscious lifestyle, that our lifestyle makes no negative impact in the environment. That is spirituality. Spirituality is not simply reading a scripture like Bhagavad Gita and making no changes in your personal life. Spirituality is not erecting magnificent temples and fight for superiority or leadership in that temple. Spirituality is not sitting for hours together in a oven, smoking, inhaling smoke. While all that may be important, I don't refute that fact. Spirituality is not merely giving dhanam in terms of money. Spirituality is charitable disposition. Spirituality is leading a life of conscious living so that we are conscious of everybody's interest. Simple things like you may be celebrating a birthday party and you are oblivious of your neighbor who need to wake up early morning, 4 o'clock, and run to for his job, for his work or whatever. We are oblivious of our environment. We pollute the environment in every way possible. If we do not wake up to this reality and change our natural order of living without inflicting pain upon other creatures, without polluting our environment, without polluting Mother Earth's blood vessels, which we call river, without polluting the ocean, if you continue to lead, we can expect more disaster like this. But those of you who lead a conscious life, Vedas gives us a security. Veda says, Dharmo rakshati rakshita. He who protects dharma will always be protected. Dharmo rakshati rakshita. He who protects dharma is always protected. While every other business may be going through challenges, I've come across business people, no, we are fine, comfortable, thank God. Why? Dharmo rakshati rakshita. Similarly, your health, similarly, your relationship, every aspect of life. If you protect dharma, dharma will protect you. That, ladies and gentlemen, is the purpose of Avatar. That is the purpose of the advent of Avatar. Think about it. Thank you very much. We conclude with a Shanti part. Om Purnamada Purnamitam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavasishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Sri Angajinji, for yet another enlightening and inspirational discourse. Definitely a highlight of tonight's Krishna Janmashtami celebrations. Sri Angajinji wishes to place on record his sincere thanks to all those who have made donations to the foundation over this past week. For those who have not yet had a chance to and wish to still do so, you may via EFT or PayPal. Please check the chat box for the link to donation information. I'm sure we can all definitely appreciate the time and effort that goes into putting together such a power-packed program of this nature, which we are so lucky to receive from the comfort of our home by merely logging onto your YouTube. Remember, all this beautiful knowledge requires you to revisit the teachings, and most importantly, to put it into practice in our day-to-day lives. Therefore, if you wish to continue this enlightening journey, a kind reminder that Angajinji's CDs, DVDs, and books are available via the website www.lifemastery.vision. You can also check the chat box for the link to the website. Once again, everyone, please do not forget to subscribe to all our social media platforms. The links are in the description box below. To be notified of all future events and inspiring video uploads, make sure you have subscribed to our YouTube channel and have clicked the bell icon. A blessed evening to you all. Stay safe, take care, and Hari Om.